Hello, welcome back to Flyin Miata Live. My name is Mike Usrey, and we're going to be talking about lifter tick today. That's something that if you have ever owned most NA Miata ever in the last probably 2 decades, you've at least heard of it or definitely experienced it for yourself if you have ever had a higher mileage car. We're going to talk about what is lifter tick, why does it happen, how can you prevent it, and what things you can do to hopefully fix it moving forward. All of that and a little bit of technical know-how in between. If you're watching this on YouTube in the widescreen 4K format, of course, we will still try to answer any comments and questions that you do put down in the comments below after it's posted as well. Okay, without further ado, lifter tick, what is it? So when we're talking about lifter ticks, I'm going to be specifically talking mostly about NAs and NBs. This can happen to the later cars as well, but it's most notoriously something that happens with NAs. And that's because they actually have a slightly different technology for their lifter or valve system than the later years do. Specifically, they have what's called a hydraulic lash adjustment style lifter. Before we get too much into that lifter, what the heck is a lifter? So, got some engines here. To show you what a lifter is without diving in too deep, you have engines, right? So we're going to look at this one first. I have the valve cover off so that way you can see the top of the head. We have our camshafts here, and then underneath the camshafts, we have our lifters. These are the buckets specifically. This is an NB. They look very similar, NA to NB, but these guys are what interface with your camshaft lobes. So as your camshafts go around, they push on these buckets, and in turn, these buckets, so named because they kind of look like a bucket when you turn them upside down, they push down on your valve stems, and that opens the valves to either let air into the cylinder or let exhaust gas out of the cylinder. So their job is basically to be an in-between of your camshaft lobes and your valves themselves. So there's a few different types. We've got this style, which is a shimmed bucket for an NB. We'll talk about that more in a second. And then we also have this style, which is an NA, which is the hydraulic lash adjustment, which you can see, they look a little different. Actually, here, let me grab the NB one again. Pro tip, if you need to get them out a little bit easier, just to use a big magnet, they come right out. So comparing NA to NB, so you can kind of see what's going on here, talking about hydraulic lash adjustment. You can see this one here on your left is the hydraulic lash adjustment, and that's easy to see because you have this big groove that runs along the circumference of the bucket. They both look pretty similar otherwise. Slight differences you can kind of see on the bottom as well. But visually, that's the easiest way to tell it's a hydraulic lash adjustment on a NA or 1.6, NA 1.8 engine, 90 through 97 if you're here in the US. And this style over here is what Mazda moved to in some of the later years, like the 99 up into the NC or third generation, and NDs I'll cover briefly in a little bit, but basically this is kind of what we're focusing on today, since this is typically what most people complaining about lifter tick are going to be looking at. So these little guys, these are both bucket style lifters. And these guys, again, both of them interact between the camshaft lobes and the valves to be able to let air in, exhaust out. But these hydraulic lifters, these guys are more than just an in-between. They actually will take up some lash, hence the hydraulic lash adjustment, so that way you don't need to figure out what that specific clearance is. On a solid style bucket like these guys, and this is kind of typical for a lot of bucket style adjustment, it's not only just a bucket, but you can see there's this little notch here. This little notch is so that way you can usually use a thin blade screwdriver or something to be able to get it out, or you can also sometimes use a magnet, there we go, to get this, which is the shim. Pull it off of there. So this is the shim, and you can't really see it on this one because the letters and numbers have been worn off, but this is actually a very precise measurement. So kind of walking back over here to our whiteboard, I have an example that our lovely Travis drew up for us because I have the calligraphy and artist skills of a kindergartner. This is a kind of cutout view of a lifter and camshaft profile. This is the bucket, the cam lifter bucket itself, and we are actually featuring the hydraulic lash adjustment version, the NA version. But both of them, you can see the camshaft as it turns around, the lobe presses down, and that's how it's moving the valve, right? So on these guys, the space here is actually called lash. You do need to have a very specific tolerance or clearance between these two. You usually use a feeler gauge set to be able to determine what that lash is. You'd fit it between your camshaft and your lifters here. And you can use that to determine what your actual clearance is. There is a tolerance that too much is bad and too little is also bad. Of course, there's always that baby bear just right. But on a hydraulic style lifter, this is actually, it doesn't have a shim. It will maintain the proper engagement with the camshaft because you have oil pressure from the engine, from the oil pump, getting fed through into that lifter. Sorry, I should take my props with me, shouldn't I? Through this little channel here, it comes into the side, fills it full of oil pressure, and there's actually a plunger on the inside here. And hopefully you can kind of see this if I showed it here in the light up front. This little bit here in the middle, that's actually a plunger. And this one, I can actually move it by hand. But you can see there is actually moving parts to these guys. So when this is filled with oil pressure, this plunger extends. Basically, it can take up any of that gap. So that way your lash adjustment is always perfectly touching the lobe of the camshaft and the base circle at all times. So it's kind of an ideal scenario where you don't need to worry about setting your lash adjustment. The hydraulic pressures of the oil filling this lifter does it all for you. It's automatic. So it's a really good solution for maintenance-free operation mostly. So lifter tick comes in because on these setups, it is little bitty moving parts. You do have to have oil coming through several passages. And to kind of showcase what the construction of this is, of course, I showed you coming in here, we've got oil that flows in here. There's kind of an external passageway here, and then the oil makes its way into this internal plunger. It's kind of two cylinders that overlap and then slide into each other. And then there is a check valve with a ball, like a sprung ball here where this oil comes through. And this will have a spring that will hold it shut most of the time, but oil pressure can overcome it, push past the ball into this chamber, and that's what causes the whole plunger to extend because it has that pressure to push it open. So when that happens, it takes up the lash. That way there's not a big gap between the camshaft and the lifter. And then oil is more or less trapped here. That pressurized oil is trapped, pushing this apart to extend this plunger and the top bucket or hat of the lifter and basically take up the gap. So that is a good thing, except for that these little guys, these holes, these passages between the different compartments of the lifter are really, really tiny. And in an ideal scenario, you would be okay because oil is able to move freely. You know, you use the right viscosity oil, you can have pretty trouble-free operation for a long time. But these are not perfect circumstances. These engines do work. We live in a world where there's dirt and debris and carbon buildup and all kinds of things. These little passages will get clogged up with yuck, and it prevents oil from flowing as well as it could. You can even have the spring that holds your check valve or check ball in place get stuck. You can have it get stuck open. These two kind of plungers, cylinders that go in and out, you know, when hydraulic pressure forces them out, you can actually get seepage or leaking between them because they get worn down because you have dirt or contaminants in your oil and that doesn't hold the pressure like it used to. So even if you have oil flowing in, it just comes through and then leaks out past those walls because they're worn down. Kind of like if you have cylinder blow-by, a similar kind of effect where you're not able to keep that pressure into the cylinder where it should be. Same thing here, you want to keep the pressure inside the lifter so it can do its job properly. So when this happens, your lifter isn't able to extend fully, and so you'll get a bit of gap here and or here. And when that happens, and the camshaft spins around, and the lobe will slap the top of the lifter, and that makes a clicking noise, or when it hits the top of the valve, it makes a clicking noise, and that's the lifter tick that everybody is probably pretty familiar with. So this is something that when the system stops working, it's less than ideal. Hopefully that's a good illustration. If you have questions about that process as a whole, drop your comments down below and I'll come back to it. To further exemplify lifter tick, we had some questions from some folks about what does lifter tick even sound like? Good news, I have a car right here. One of our coworkers was kind enough to let us showcase his Miata, which, as you can tell, it's a NA Miata. So this is a, I think it's like a 91, 92, I forget, I should have asked, sorry Eli. But it has a 1.6 liter engine with the hydraulic lash adjustment lifters in it, and unfortunately it does have lifter tick. So I'm gonna turn on a second microphone so that way you can hear what this engine sounds like. So let me start this up. You should hear the tick, 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 tick. The engine is cold, all the oil has drained down. All right, so I've certainly heard worse. You could probably, hopefully, hear this when as soon as it started up, it had that kind of high-pitched clatter, the tick, 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 and then it quieted down after a few seconds. And that's actually not terrible. We've had some that they will just continue ticking for minutes. You go drive it, get it warmed up, the sound doesn't go away. But that initial sound that we heard, that tick, 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 that is because the hydraulic lash adjustment, those lifters have not filled up with oil yet, and so there's a little bit of space, and that camshaft is able to basically slap the top of the lifter, making that noise. So, is this a bad thing? Is it a problem? It isn't great. For most people, especially in the case of like this car, it's naturally aspirated, it doesn't make a ton of horsepower. The noise actually went away relatively quickly. So all in all, no, this isn't a catastrophic thing. You don't need to worry about it if it goes away pretty quickly like this one does. Mazda actually specifies that this noise should go away within 10 minutes. Yes, I said 10 minutes of starting your engine after it's been dead cold, like sitting overnight. So if the noise doesn't go away after 10 minutes, especially if you go drive the car, get it warmed up, make sure that oil pressure is actually building up in those lifters, then you have a problem. But for most people, if you hear the noise after startup within 10 minutes, it's a pretty wide window, yeah, it's fine. These engines do take a little bit longer, and of course, the longer you use them, the more buildup and debris and cloggage happens over time and makes that process take a little bit longer. It's okay. So what happens if it doesn't go away? What happens then basically is that lifter's never able to extend at all. Either it's frozen, it's blocked up, clogged, leaking, whatever. And so that means that one, you're going to hear that noise as the camshaft is slapping the top of the lifter, but also it's not going to be able to open up your valves as far as they need to be able to let air in and exhaust out. So you are losing a little bit of performance as well. On a naturally aspirated engine, it's not that big a deal. These only had, 90 horsepower to begin with, at least out of the 1.6. But you are leaving some on the table. So it's something that you should address at least eventually, but it's not catastrophic. The good thing about if the valves don't extend too far, even though this is a non-interference engine, that basically makes it even less of a chance, interference-wise, that you'll have trouble with pistons running into valves. So not great, but it's also not something that you're probably going to cause a problem with. If it gets so bad, basically, you're going to probably see reduced fuel economy a little bit. It might have tough time starting and staying started after a cold start because it's not flowing as much air as it should. things of that nature, but you have to get it pretty, or have to let it get pretty bad before it gets to that point. What can you do to solve lifter tick? Well, for hydraulic lash adjustment lifters, Mazda says these are not serviceable. If you look in the factory service manual, it says, do not attempt to service. Now, that's Mazda's official word. These guys are somewhat salvageable. Let me show you with a comparison here. Pull out another one. A good way to know, because you might hear the noise and figure out, okay, I want to do something about it. You open up the engine, you pull your camshafts out. How can you tell which ones are actually bad? So if you pull them out and then look at the underside of these guys, remember the plungers I was pointing out earlier? So with these guys, if they're really worn out or not holding pressure, then actually here, this is the bad one. You can see that this plunger, I can just squeeze it with my finger and I can get it to compress. So it's probably worn out. The plunger wall to the internal wall is worn out enough that I can move it. There hasn't been any oil pressure in here. So that's probably worn out or could use some love. This one, on the other hand, I cannot compress this at all. So I can squeeze this guy and there is still oil in here and it won't let me compress that plunger at all. Which is kind of impressive because this is an engine we've had on this stand for, oh, I don't know, probably close to a decade at this point. It has definitely not had oil pressure in it for many years. So if they're still good, they can hold that internal pressure for long, long periods of time. So as a basic test, you can use that just by squeezing that plunger to see if it moves at all. If it doesn't, it's probably good. But that's a good way to test it on these style lifters. Now back to the what can I do about it? So Mazda says don't service them. They want you to just replace them. You can't really disassemble these to clean them. What we have found is a at least viable option. There are many brands of cleaners and other such snake oil out there that we've tried. The only ones that we have actually found that worked is actually a brand called BG. So over here, I've got a couple of cans of BG. Basically, this is the stuff out of all of the other cleaners and solvents that basically they have you run one can before you do an oil change. Basically, it is the detergent and cleaner. And they want you to run it for, you know, so long and rev the RPMs up, that kind of thing. You drain the oil, you put in fresh oil, and then you use the MOA additive. And that basically is a conditioner that you run with the new fresh oil. But these two cans, yes, I know that this isn't actually MOA. We didn't have a unused one out of the trash, easy to access, but the EPR and the MOA is what we found actually worked. We have one of our shop cars that it was probably the noisiest lifter tick engine I've heard here at the shop in a long time. And now it runs very, very quiet. We were not ready to believe that it'd actually do anything, but we thought, you know what? Let's do one last Hail Mary before we decide to swap the head or get a new set of, you know, lifters, because obviously you can really only buy genuine ones from Mazda that I'm aware of, and they aren't exactly cheap. So we thought, give it a shot, and we were pleasantly surprised. It actually worked out. So that is provided that they're not super, super worn out and they're just dirty. So you may be able to revive your lifters with this kind of a cleaner solution, maybe. If they're super worn down like this one, I would be surprised if you were able to actually get this one to come back because it's probably just worn out rather than clogged and dirty. The other option that some folks have suggested is, well, get rid of the hydraulic lifters and go to a shim style lifter design. So like the 98 up to 2005, the NBs, where there's no moving parts, there's no hydraulic lash to worry about. You can do that. The problem is that you also should swap the camshafts from the later engine over to your NA as well. Why is that? So I don't have a set of NA camshafts to compare, unfortunately. But in essence, the camshaft profiles themselves are different NA to NB. And I'm not just talking about the overall lift of the camshaft profile, but actually the ramp up and down is different. On the hydraulic lifters, you can get away with a more aggressive ramp up and ramp down because your lash or adjustment between the camshaft and the top of the lifter is held relatively constant because the oil pressure keeping it in contact. With a shim style lifter, you do need a certain amount of gap between your camshaft and the lifter because it's not something that is adjusted on the fly, it is a static adjustment. So these guys, depending on intake and exhaust, depending on if we're talking about NCs or a different engine, all shim style lifters will have a lash. That lash needs to be close enough to where it's going to maintain pretty good contact, but also not too close because that will also cause noise and damage over time. So you can swap these guys over, but because it has a certain amount of lash, there is a little bit of a slap effect that happens when the pointy end of the lobe is contacting that top of the lifter. So you need a little bit more roundness, a little less aggressive ramp on a shim style lifter than you do on a hydraulic style lifter. So if you do want to go to solid lifters, also go to the later NB style camshafts because they do have the correct profiles to match up with these lifters. They do interchange in the bore. Just to show you here, I've got this guy. It's the same diameter. You should really use a little bit of oil to make that easier. And then the camshafts also interchange. So that is an option. Be aware that on NAs, you do need to have a slotted rear camshaft on the exhaust side, so that way your cam angle sensor can plug in. If you're running an aftermarket ECU, you can use a different like NB style crank sensor, cam sensor setup if you want to. Basically, there's a little bit else to know, but as far as physical fitment of lifters and camshafts, just remember the lifters and the camshafts should go together. To kind of break away from the NAs and NBs for just a little bit, I mentioned briefly NCs. Yes, they also use a solid style lifter. I keep moving my magnet. It doesn't look exactly like the NBs, but it is similar where it has a shim and then a bucket. They're not interchangeable, totally different engines. So sorry guys, you can't steal MZR parts for your BP and B6 stuff. It's just not going to work. NDs, they also actually have hydraulic lash adjustment, but they have a rocker style hydraulic lash adjustment. It's a pretty goofy arrangement. So far, I haven't heard any instances of people complaining about lifter tick on their NDs. We've not experienced it, so apparently it's a system that at least is at the moment not old enough, doesn't have enough miles across the generation that it's an issue, and or it's a better lifter design and it must not have the same kind of failure mode as the NA lifters do. So we shall see, time will probably tell, but really this is kind of more of a NA-NB thing, specifically the NAs where they have the hydraulic lash adjustments. It's kind of known to be a problem. I will mention that if you do have a shim over bucket, that's what this is referred to, the shim is over the bucket style, or even if you do have a shim under bucket where this shim is actually on the underside, not a stock thing, that's an aftermarket thing. Either way, you do need to be careful about setting your lash adjustment. I'm not going to go over that here in this video. That is a whole huge topic all in its own. I will say that if this is you, if you have an NB or even NC, you can use a really good resource by our friend Greg over at the Car Passion channel. He has a super good video about lash adjustment. He actually has tools on his website that have a whole spreadsheet and calculator. Honestly, I could do that, but I think Greg has done it better than anybody. So if you are looking for a tool to help you with setting your lash on an NB and even an NC, that's a really good resource. We'll put a link to that down in the comments and maybe here in the chat too. So besides that, let's see, what else do we have here? One of the questions we got about this was some alternatives to fixing lifter tick. I'm going to assume that this is probably NA, or 90 through 97 related. And the question was, I hear that running Rotella T6 will fix this issue because it is a high viscosity and has extra cleaners and other chemicals in it. Is that true? So, asterisk, it is possible. One, if you have issues with maybe the walls between these kind of plungers are leaky and it's not able to hold oil pressure very well, then running a thicker fluid like I think it's 15W40, does allow basically, thicker molecules and bigger viscosity of keeping that pressure higher, generally speaking, for a given temperature. So yeah, you might be able to use a thicker weight oil, not necessarily Rotella, it could be whatever, to make this to where that lifter stays inflated more often, or at least a slightly higher pressure than as leaky as it would be with 5W30 or 10W30. It is possible. I don't know that Rotella has terribly huge amounts of cleaners and stuff. It's certainly not going to be anything similar to or as much cleaner detergent as the BG products. So if you're considering a Band-Aid versus I just want to take care of this, hopefully, once and for all, I would do this rather than the Rotella route. But yeah, if you struggle and you don't want to replace the lifters and, doing a cleaning session doesn't work, running a higher viscosity oil can help. It is still a Band-Aid. And of course, that means that you're also running higher pressure throughout the rest of the engine as well, which may or may not be a good thing depending on your engine and how you use it. Had a comment about my NC2 with 92,000 miles always sounds like a sewing machine. Does it need fixing? Maybe. So when I hear the term, it runs like a sewing machine, my mind thinks that that's probably good. If it's a consistent mechanical noise and at least a well-tuned sewing machine has a very just small but consistent rhythmic, just click, 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 kind of just a quiet or very light noise, it's probably okay. Remember, there are metal things smacking other metal things very quickly in these engines, so yeah, you're never going to have a completely silent engine. But the other thing that I think a lot of people may not realize is that it may not be your lifters or valve train. It could also be something like your fuel injectors. So if you hear a noise that's very rhythmic and you're not sure what the noise is, you might use the screwdriver stethoscope. If you haven't done that before, you get a thick-handled screwdriver, usually like one of those cast resin handles, big thick screwdriver, and you can put it on pieces of metal, on your valve cover, on your intake, on your block, whatever, but you can use that to tell, is the sound coming from a specific kind or a part of your engine block? I like to do it basically like on the side of the head, real close to where the lifters are going to live, and see if I can hear it specifically on the head. Or if your injectors, which are also going to be pretty close, they are going to make a lot of noise, especially if they're a bigger aftermarket injector, because they're solenoids that are moving very quickly. And again, it's metal moving and slamming into another piece of metal to open or close. They can be pretty noisy. So first thing first, try to isolate the issue and make sure what you're thinking you're hearing is actually valve train or maybe something else. So let's stop here and go to the audience questions. Do we have anything that I should talk about? I did talk about this a little bit. The question is, will a frozen or stuck hydraulic lash adjustment style lifter, I assume, prevent airflow or cause problems otherwise with the valves moving? Yes, to some extent. The difference, where did I put it? The difference in movability, oh, here's the bad one. So again, looking at these guys with the plungers that move or don't move, this is the one that doesn't move. And then one that does move, I haven't measured this to see, how much movement here we have, but this is probably around, 2 to 3 millimeters worth of movement, somewhere like that. So in terms of valve lift, that's a pretty significant amount of movement. Is it enough to completely stop your engine or not allow the valves to open at all? No, it's not quite that bad. But basically, again, it'll probably run a little bit worse, a little bit less, efficient fuel economy. You may have some rough starts, just depends on how bad it is. If you notice that kind of stuff, and especially if it's noisy, you got the lifter tick, it's a pretty good indication you know where to start looking to hopefully fix this issue, or at least clean it out if possible. Very good question. So question was, do I need to worry about the order of the lifters from which they came out? Do they need to go back in the same position? Yes. So these are machine parts. This is a machined head. You do need to make sure that when you take a lifter out of its bore, it goes back in the same position. There are going to be little itty bitty differences in the diameter and or the wear pattern of the bore that these live in, and they do need to go back in the same home from which they came. So that is important. You can cause accelerated wear and potentially put shiny glitter into your oil if you mix them up. They're not hopefully going to be super, super different, but you will notice some wear if you mix up your lifters. If you're doing a NB style or an aftermarket shim over bucket style conversion, or I'm sorry, shim under bucket style conversion, you should have your machine shop do a measurement on the bore versus the bucket diameter to ensure that they are properly sized. So won't go into that too much deeper, but short answer, yes, be careful. That is something that matters. Okay, so the question is about, instead of using a product like BG or Rotella, what about using ATF, automatic transmission fluid? Automatic transmission fluid, it does usually have a lot of detergent and cleaners in it. For those that aren't familiar with automatic transmissions, the oil pressure and what it does is everything to an automatic transmission. So having that fluid be able to squeeze through little passages that will change the flow, change the pressure, is really important. So there is a lot of cleaner and detergent in ATF. So can you use it to help clean out lifters and do a similar job to the BG oils? Yes, to a certain extent, yes. I will say that it's not specifically formulated for this kind of an application, but it is an option. I don't know that we've tried ATF before. Yeah, we're getting head shakes here. So I can't say for any certain, this kind of a ratio if you're going to try it. I would say do some research first and look into it. It is possible, but there are chemicals that are specifically formulated, and to our extent, we have had good results with. So your mileage may vary. The question was, what engines are immune to this? If you have a shim style lifter, it does not have any oil pressure that is controlling how much lash or how much clearance it has between the lifter and the camshaft, or between the lifter and the valve. So at least in North America, if your car is a 1999 to 2005, it's going to be a 1.8, and it's going to have the shim style lifters. If you have an engine in a car elsewhere in the world, I don't know exactly because we didn't get any other engine options over here, but my understanding is that after, any 1.8 liter engine after 97 is very likely going to be a shim style lifter. The 1.6s, I honestly don't know after 94 if that was a thing that got the shim style lifters or not. If you live elsewhere and have a 1.6 from 98 and later, probably should check with your local Mazda or check with another MX-5 specialist in your country. Unfortunately, I just don't know that. We have not seen any 1.6 engines from overseas here. Does the oil filter affect or have a role to play with lifter tick? You could say so. I wouldn't say that it is directly related. Bear in mind, again, we're talking about oil pressure here. So if you have an oil filter that is potentially clogged or has poor flow characteristics or something like that, then you might have a lower oil pressure by the time that the oil gets up here to the valve train compared to when it left the oil pump. So if it is a particularly restrictive filter, there might not be enough pressure to properly fill the HLA lifters as it should. So if that's the case, generally a test that you can run to see if that's even part of it is if you rev the engine. When you rev the engine, your oil pump is spinning faster and faster, which means more flow, but also more pressure. And you should be able to see, if you've got an older car up to 94, I think, that has the actual oil pressure gauge, you'll see that gauge start to actually move. If you have a later NA, 95 on to 2005, unfortunately, they're dummy gauges. Even the third generation NCs have dummy gauges. Thanks, Mazda. But if you really, really need to look into it, you probably should get a aftermarket or some kind of a mechanical testing oil pressure gauge to see what your oil pressure really is. But as you rev the engine, you get higher pressure numbers. And so if that noise goes away as you rev the engine up to higher RPMs, but then it becomes more apparent when it's like idle, that might be the case. So, try a good quality name brand oil filter. To our knowledge, the Mazda ones are pretty good. We like Bosch. So we have Bosch oil filters and we've had good luck with those. There's numerous brands of good oil filters out there. Do your research. Basically, you might need to dig deeper, but oil filters, unless there's a problem, generally are not the cause of lifter tick. Oh, right. Sorry. There was a question earlier about, I can't tell if this is lifter tick or rod knock. So there are going to be some minor differences in them, especially if you're not familiar with the noises. It can be difficult to differentiate lifter tick from rod knock. Lifter tick is going to be purely on the top end. It's going to be valve train related because, again, it's about the lifters themselves. So if you do the screwdriver stethoscope trick that I was talking about earlier, and you can poke it up against the head, usually you can hear that it's more, you can hear it's louder when you're pushing it up against the head to transmit that noise through the screwdriver handle. You can do that down low on the block if you can, hopefully if you get your head down low, if you got a longer screwdriver, helps that you can actually touch it to the block down low where the connecting rods are attached to the crankshaft, because that's likely where rod knock is going to happen, if at all. So you can use that as a tool to determine, is it louder up top or at bottom, that kind of thing. Rod knock also is generally going to be a deeper, lower tone. So instead of a tick, 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 tick noise like you get from valve train usually, it's usually going to be kind of more of a donk, 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 donk. And I wouldn't say that there's usually going to be a difference of one is more rhythmic than the other or not, because you could have multiple lifters ticking at the same time. You could have multiple rods that are knocking at the same time, but usually a higher tone for valve train and a lower tone for the rod knock, if that's the case. Otherwise, if you have more or still can't really determine what the issue is, top or bottom, usually it's best to have an experienced friend or mechanic take a listen. A lot of times just having somebody who knows what to listen for and has heard lifter tick versus rod knock will go a long way, without having to tear stuff apart to really investigate mechanically. So good question though. That one's a little difficult to answer. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you learned something in this video. This is something that, of course, if you have been around Miatas for a long time, most people have heard about lifter tick, and we will probably still continue to hear about lifter tick for a while yet. These engines are long-lived otherwise, so you can hopefully now prepare for either taking care of your engine a bit better by using cleaners and trying to flush it out, replacing the parts that need to if it's too far gone, that kind of thing, or looking at swapping out if you want to go with an aftermarket solution like a flat tappet or shim over or under bucket style solution. Just keep in mind that you need to pay attention to your camshafts. Otherwise, thanks again for watching. We really appreciate it. If you like this kind of video where we talk about technical stuff and what to do about it and what it does, give us a like. We really appreciate it. Of course, hit the subscribe button if you want to see even more of it, so that way you'll be notified for the next time that a big technical video like this comes out. Otherwise, we really appreciate your attention. If you have any ideas or comments about these kinds of videos that you'd like to share with us, drop those in the comments down below. We really appreciate it. We read all of them and take them to heart. We use a lot of those suggestions to be able to come up with video ideas like this. So thank you all for your suggestions and for commenting on these videos. But we will see you all next time with another FM Live next week. Thanks again.